Hello, you guys. Today we are going to be working out of our Colonial America packet, and we are going to be working on brief 3 and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and read you those. Brief 3 is on page 59. We're going to read through these, and then I'll tell you what your assignment is. Brief 3 is the 13 colonies. The focus of this one is 13 English colonies were established along the east coast of North America. So it starts with, there were 13 original English colonies in North America. These colonies were located in 3 different regions: the New England colonies, the Middle colonies, and the Southern colonies. The New England colonies were the following: Massachusetts Bay Colony, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. The Middle colonies were the following: New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. The Southern colonies were the following: Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. The 13 original colonies were founded for different reasons. Some of these reasons were religious freedom, searching for gold, farming, trade, and refuge for debtors. That was Georgia. So let's go ahead and turn over to page 60. The population in the 13 colonies grew rapidly during the 16th and 17th centuries. This data table shows how the population increased between 1625 and 1775. It is important to remember that this data only shows numbers of colonists. There were already millions of Native Americans living on the continent of North America. So when you look at these numbers, it's not counting Native Americans. It's not counting the Indians. Native Americans, sorry. Economics in the colonies. The New England colonies, the Middle colonies, and the Southern colonies had different types of economies. These economies depended upon the kind of natural resources that were available to them. The New England colonies were surrounded by thick forests. These colonies exported a lot of timber to Europe. They also used the timber to build houses, ships, and barrels. The Middle colonies had access to rich farming soil. These colonies also had a temperate climate. The soil and the climate made it the perfect place to grow large crops of wheat. After the wheat was harvested, it was made into flour. The flour was exported to other colonies and also all over the world. Slavery. The southern colonies also had rich soil, but the climate was much warmer and wetter than it was further north. Here, tobacco, rice, and indigo, a kind of blue dye, were grown on plantations. Although slavery was practiced in all 13 colonies, it was more widespread in the southern colonies. The people who were enslaved and forced to work mostly came from West Africa. These people were considered to be the property of the people who bought them. They had no rights and were often treated with extreme cruelty. In the 1750s, there were over 200,000 slaves in the colonies. All right, let's turn our page to colonial life. This is on page 61, and the focus of this brief, we're on brief 4 now, is the colonists worked hard and lived in towns, cities, and on farms. In the late 16th and early 17th centuries, most colonists lived on farms. But as the population increased, towns and cities grew. Colonial farms. Most farms in colonial America were small family farms. Life on the farm was not easy. Farmers did not have the machines that they have today. Farmers had to rely on animals to help them plow their fields. The crops had to be harvested by hand. Many farmers relied on the labor of slaves and indentured servants to do the work. Most farms were self-sufficient. Self-sufficient means that you rely on only yourself for what you need to survive. Women on farms made soap and candles. They spun wool that was made into clothing. They churned butter by hand. Often, many family farms would help each other. They shared their livestock. Livestock are farm animals like cows, horses, and sheep. The men helped each other plant and harvest the crops. The women spun yarn together and prepared food. Colonial cities. Colonial cities, just like cities today, were busy places. They were more densely populated than towns or farms. Some of the largest colonial cities were the following: Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Boston, Massachusetts, Newport, Rhode Island, Charleston, South Carolina. All of these cities were located on ports. A port is a place where ships dock to load and unload people and cargo. Colony cities had churches, government, buildings, and taverns. Newspapers were published in big cities. Union Fire Company. Fires were a big problem in the colonial cities. Most buildings were made of wood. The buildings were heated by fireplaces. The buildings were also built close together. If one building caught fire, it quickly spread to others. In 1736, Benjamin Franklin founded the first volunteer fire company in the colonies. It was called the Union Fire Company. The firefighters had to carry water to the fire in buckets made of leather. They also carried large baskets for removing items from burning buildings. After a time, there were many volunteer fire companies in Philadelphia. They helped to keep the city and the residents safe from fires. We're on page 62 now. Colonial towns. Colonial towns were smaller than cities. Like farms, they were also self-sufficient. A colonial town was built around a common area. People used this area to graze their animals. This is also where a well was located. A well is a deep hole dug in the ground that reaches the water. Towns had their own mills, working in the colonies. Colonists did a variety of different kinds of work. A miller ran a mill where people could grind corn and wheat into flour. A blacksmith made iron goods like horseshoes and nails. A cooper made barrels from wood and iron that were used for transporting goods. A shoemaker made shoes and boots from leather and wood. A chandler is a person who made candles. And a wheelwright is a person who made carriage or wagon wheels. Colonial clothing. So if you look down here at the bottom, you can see how they dressed in the colonial period and the different layers and names that they had. Women often wore huge poofy dresses, and men wore long coats. Okay, so for our activity today, in your bags, there should be a map that looks like this, the 13 colonies. So you guys are going to label this, and by label it, I mean you look for number 1, and that's Virginia. So on the line, you write Virginia. Now I'm sure you're thinking, how do I know which colony is which? I'll tell you how. Here's the map. So you can go ahead and pause the video and look at that, and then you'll be able to find them. You can also just Google the 13 original colonies and maps will come up. That needs to be turned in next Monday. If you have any questions, please let me know. Bye.